Hello there, beautiful human beings. Welcome to the video. In this video, I'm going to be sharing a story of something that a monk shared with me while I was giving him a lift to his monastery that really, it blew my mind, and it had me thinking for days afterwards about what he'd said. And I'm going to share what we discussed in this drive and a little bit of introspection and discussion on the topic, which I find really interesting. So it was New Year's Eve, and it was my first time visiting this particular Buddhist community center. And I'd gone to hear this monk share some wisdom, and I got to the end of the talk, and the volunteer that was hosting, so to speak, asked if anyone could give this monk a lift the next morning, which was New Year's Day, back to his monastery, which is in the country, beautiful nature property where he and a bunch of other monks and nuns live. And I just thought instantly, what an epic opportunity this would be to have a really intimate conversation with this monk and get to ask a series of questions. I've always been very curious about someone having the desire to renounce so much in their life. And so, I jumped at the opportunity, and 8:30 on New Year's Day, I rock up at the community center, and it turns out there were two monks that I was giving a lift to, and jumped in the car and started giving them a lift. And I had a lot of things that I wanted to ask. Now, the question I'm going to be talking about today that I asked, and the response and some musings on that, was I asked this monk what he loved most about his lifestyle as a monk. Now, to give some background information on what these particular monks live like, they are quite minimalist. They've gone through this process where they have chosen that they are going to give up a lot of the modern luxuries that we have in modern society. So essentially their lifestyle looks like, the reason I was giving him a lift is because monks aren't allowed to drive. And there's this big list of different rules they have that's essentially meant to strip back the excitability and complexity and entertainment of a normal life and make it a lot more pure in form. So they live a very basic, a very simple life. They'll meditate for most of every day. They're not allowed to own too many material possessions. So they will usually have a robe that they wear. They have some stitching, sewing materials to be able to repair it if it tears or whatnot. They'll usually have a bowl that they are served food in. They're not allowed to make their own food. They can only eat what's been offered to them by the general public. They don't keep money, and they don't have phones. They don't go and participate in normal kind of recreational activities. Definitely no drinking, no eating meat, no sexual activity, no relationships, romantic relationships. So it's very stripped back, right? And so the intention there, and the Buddhist philosophy, is that if you can restrain, I'm forgetting the exact word that they use, but if you can give up a lot of the things that you're attached to, because Buddhism is a lot about non-attachment, you can start to build a closer relationship to peace of mind. You burn your karma and you will have the most happy life if you can get rid of these things that trigger attachment, that engage the sensory experience of what it's like to be a human. Now, I've got my thoughts around that. I'm not going to share them all on this this video, but I do want to give that context so you understand, okay, cool. This person is spending most of their day, 10 plus hours a day meditating. They live in a very simple bed. They have less than 10 material possessions. They'll do a little bit of education. So they'll learn a little bit each day, most likely. And they'll have one meal per day. And then they'll usually do some teaching. But they're not even allowed to have money, right? So when I hear that for the first time, it feels like a very restricted lifestyle. That's what I feel. Very restricted, very plain. And when I asked this monk the question, what does he love most about his life? His response was, he loves the freedom that it gives. He loves the freedom that it gives. Now, the reason that I feel that this really blew my mind, it had me thinking deeply about this. So it's the 7th of January, the day that I'm recording this. It's been a week since I had this chat, and I've been thinking about it over the last week a fair bit, because modern society's general understanding of freedom is that not many people ever get to a point of freedom in their life, because most people are contingent on finances to be able to get to a point where they feel that they're free in their life. Obviously, freedom is a broad word. It can be used in lots of different ways. But if you ask the average person what it would take for them to be free in their life, they're probably going to say, I need to win the lottery, or I need to get a lot of money so I can retire and I don't have to do my job that I don't enjoy. Whereas this monk has stripped back so much and relied on the support from others to the point that he never has any concerns or thoughts about paying rent. How's he looking compared to other people? So in a way, he is living, feeling free when he's got almost nothing. And he's feeling free. And the average person feels completely trapped, even though they would have significantly more than the average monk. The average person probably owns like 500 plus items, would probably have some money. I know a lot of people are in debt, but even if you had $2,000, you've got more money than a monk. Even if you had $500,000, you've got a lot more money than a monk who has nothing. But you may not feel free, but the monk does. The monk has created, this particular monk feels free. And the reason that it really took me aback when he gave this response is because it's such a different way of living. I don't know about you, but I'm not prepared to agree to the Buddhist monk precepts, which is a series of restrictions, put on a robe, leave normal society, and spend most of my time in stillness. That'd be very, very difficult to do. It'd be very, very difficult to let go of all of my attachments, all the things, the modern comforts that I have. But I feel relatively free. I do have financial freedom in my life, so I'm lucky on that standpoint. And I do have a fair bit of freedom, but it's pretty, there's a very low chance that you watching this video are going to be prepared just to go off and be a monk and let go of all those modern comforts. But on the same token, I'm guessing if you could have it, you'd want to be free. You'd want to feel free. And this monk who has nothing feels free because he's not tied to much at all. Not tied to much at all. He doesn't have to keep up the car repayments on his car, that there's no sense of status. He's admitting or living in alignment with the view that he is a monk. He is no better or worse than anyone else in society. He is just living minimally, humbly accepting food and gifts from others, and mainly food, but then charity donations as well, so that they can pay for the electricity and insurances and items that they need for the actual monastery center where they live. But isn't that interesting? So my question to you is, like, how could you learn from this? How could you shift your lifestyle? Because the same notion of what he's alluding to with this freedom, I'm in the process of moving towards that. Not necessarily being a monk, but stripping back the modern amenities and the modern societal materialism that is kind of expected in most social groups, most social norms, right? I've got a fair bit of financial success, and I've got some really solid investments that give me great returns passively, where my expenses are less than my investments returns. But the reason that, because I'm not super rich, but the reason that my investments provide more income passively than my expenses is that my expenses are relatively small. I live in Melbourne, Australia, and at the moment, I know it's going to change as I have a family and whatnot. And this is not the end of the road for me in terms of the way that I want to live and the modern comforts that I want to have. But at the moment, I passively make close to $80,000 a year, and my expenses are around $40,000 a year. But I've got a lot of money that I could spend on things like rich cars. I could be in a big house, but I don't necessarily want to be in a big house. I don't want to have I genuinely don't want a rich car, because I've had an expensive car in the past, and every time I got in it, I identified as being someone with high status. It just triggered it within me. So I would drive around just with this energy that would come about me. I wasn't going out there looking at people going, you're a schmuck, you're a schmuck. But just I had this energy of feeling like, I'm like pretty good in this car. And it just gave me that feeling. And I honestly think, even though I would have the willpower to be able to not feed that, if I was to have a Mercedes, an expensive car now, I drive my Volkswagen, and it's not like a $1,000, $5,000 car. But if I sold it, I'd probably sell it for $8,000 to $10,000 now. So it's a small hatchback, really clean, well-functioning car. It's never broken down, and it's like a nice car, in my opinion. But I could buy a very expensive car if I wanted to, but I genuinely don't want to. And you know what? That gives me a lot of freedom, because it doesn't really matter what happens in my life. I don't need a lot to feel really full. I travel a lot at the moment, and there's part of me that enjoys travel, but there's part of me that doesn't enjoy travel as well. I enjoy the aspect of feeling like there's an adventure coming, but I don't like the difficulty that I have trying to find healthy food when I'm away, and the comforts that make my health at its peak. Like, I sleep really well in my bed. I don't sleep as well in another bed. So that, for me, even if I was in some luxury, cool travel destination, I'd actually I'd have a better quality experience of my life living here in Melbourne if I had a really good night's sleep and I wasn't feeling tired and low energy the next day from being somewhere nice. So I like to be in a location where I can, it's feels safe to me, and I can be energized and vital and healthy. And so I feel pretty, like, it's pretty simple for me to have this, at least in my modern lifestyle. If everything got stripped away and I was sleeping on the floor, that would be difficult for me to adjust to. So sleeping on a bed is a modern luxury. But other than sleeping on a bed, having transport, having money for healthy food, I don't spend money on alcohol. I don't spend money on a big house. I don't spend money on an expensive car. I don't need a lot to feel really full with life. The things that give me the most joy are free. Things that bring me the most joy are free. That is connecting with my friends, connecting in my meditation practice, connecting with nature. It's playing music. It's going and moving my body. These are all free. So if I had a lifestyle where it was like, go to this luxury concert, eat at this luxury restaurant, drive around in this luxury car, and do all these fancy activities, that would be way less wholesome, connecting, and fulfilling for me than what it would be just have a regular kind of rhythm and routine that's wholesome and healthy and grounded. Because that's where my body, my mind, my spirit, all aspects of my consciousness is most deeply connected. And if you look at a monk's life, even though he's stripped back modern comforts that might be really uncomfortable for you, if I was to say, hey, let go of your phone, that might be really uncomfortable initially. Let go of emotional eating, that might like only have one meal a day, that might be really uncomfortable initially, but a lot of freedom will come from that. So an example for me is my mobile phone, I keep in a snap lock bag, which is like a little sandwich bag. And then I've got a message written on it, will this fulfill you, ? So I keep my phone in this bag just as one extra physical layer of separation between me and the addiction of social media. Because I definitely find myself controlled by this device. Even if I consciously go on it to do something, my mind takes over, the addiction takes over, and all of a sudden I'm in a scroll hole and I don't even remember doing any other things to get there. It's wild. And so if I said to you, hey, I'm going to take away your phone, initially you might be like, no, I need that phone. But you'd probably find a lot of freedom in not needing to keep up with social media and the YouTube channels that you follow and your emails and whatnot. Obviously you need to, but there are ways of navigating life where if you can strip back and renounce certain things, it would actually give you more freedom. And I'm finding that as an experience. It challenges my ego's attachments to, because for example, one thing that I pretty much don't do is eat processed sugar. And so a past version of me that was very attached to processed sugar was very scared to let go of that and would get protective and even frustrated if someone said, hey, you shouldn't eat that. I'd be like, whoa, back off, buddy. This is my attachment. I feel very like, no, I need this. And now that I don't really eat processed sugar, I don't have those sugar spikes and crashes and that need to go find the processed sugar if I'm feeling low or emotional. I'll either try to find some other addiction, or I've got to sit with my emotions, or I've got to do something that's a little bit more functional and healthy to be able to support myself with that, like an emotional release or some exercise or a walk in nature or having a chat with a friend. So the invitation from this, or the wisdom that I'm pulling from this encounter with the monk, is that freedom is not necessarily what we're kind of sold in society. It's not accumulation. It's possible that you could build a business and you can make $1 billion and you could have this money, and then you would not need to think about what you spent money on. But the way that our mind works, our complex mind, our amygdala that is overstimulated and overengaged in society, it feeds on short-term gratification. So if you have $1 billion and you buy a certain Lamborghini with a tiny snippet of your money, it's giving you a short-term gratification hit of which your mind is addicted to. Excuse me. So you will need to do something after that when the spike, the adrenaline, the dopamine, that spike drops. Your body and mind are going to be searching for something else to give you the next hit, which might be a coffee, And then the coffee wears off and where's some Maltesers, some chocolates. That wears off. I need to have, go on a date and sleep with someone. That wears off. I need to scroll on social media. And there's this endless loop of addiction and attachment. And just because you have $1 billion doesn't solve that feeling of being trapped. Because if you need the processed sugar, you're owned by the processed sugar, which means that you're not free. Because if you want to choose not to have it, you can't. So you're trapped. You're not actually free. So freedom, in the notion that I'm suggesting it as in this video, actually comes from detachment, not wealth, materialism, and accumulation. The need, the addiction, is the opposite of freedom. It's actually requiring it to feel good. It is literally being held captive by a certain parameter and expectation that your mind has, your ego has. If you need to make love to your partner and then he or she says no, and you are waiting and needing that and writing, like, I need that, then how are you going to react? You're going to be frustrated, upset, disappointed. Is that free? I don't think so. I don't think that's freedom. I think that the need and the expectation to make love in that situation means that you're held captive by that. It owns you. If you need to eat a lot of food because you emotionally eat a lot, I don't blame you. There's no judgment here. I totally understand. Everyone has this aspect of our mind, but there can be so much more freedom that comes from learning to let go of certain attachments. And if you can learn to feel really awesome with a little, that's where you've got a lot of freedom. Because then it doesn't really matter what happens to COVID. You're not going to be one of those people that if the economy crashes, you're going to jump off the building because, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to afford the repayments on my house. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to live as lavishly. And I've worked so hard for all this money and now the money's gone. What's the point of being here? What a tragedy. What an absolute tragedy. Because the money was never fulfilling them in the first place. The luxury house was never what was fulfilling them in the first place. And I'm speaking from experience here because I've been at a point in my business where I was making $4 to $5 million a year and living very luxuriously, living in a 4-story house, having a supercar, traveling whenever I want. I'd spend about $1,500 per week, not month, week on my food. Would go shopping and buy $3,000 worth of clothes in one shop. I'd just travel whenever I want, wherever I want, never even thought about it. I traveled from Australia to Europe for like 5-6 days for a mini holiday and then popped back. Just a lot of wealth, but I was significantly less fulfilled then with spending that much money than what I am now, spending the amount of money that I spend now. I'm actually more wealthy now as well, funnily enough, because I spend a lot less money. So the money that I make, I keep. The money that I made in the past, I'd spend because of my addictions, because of my attachments. And a lot of that was to significance and feeling worthy and needing to show status instead of just feeling really full in who I am, for where I am, no matter what that looks like. That to me is the real freedom. That's what I'm starting to learn more and more of. And it feels like a very enriching perspective. It's really transformed my life. And so to see someone that is in a position in their life where they've renounced and let go of significantly more than I've ever even considered letting go of in a monk, and for them to say their favorite part of being in that position is that they feel free, it was very confirming for me and inspiring in a way. Now, what I want to invite you into is that if there's any part of you that is feeling guarded or triggered by what I'm, my throat's going, guarded or triggered by what I've suggested in this video, the idea of letting go, renouncing different things in your life, first and foremost, this is your life. And in my intention for my life is to have the most fulfilling life possible. So if someone suggests something to me, I'm only going to do what I think is going to make my life more fulfilling. So for you, I've got no attachment to you doing what I'm suggesting. If you want to keep emotional eating, if that's something that you do, or like eating lots of sweets or spending a lot of time on YouTube, or if you're addicted to videos online. I don't want to get demonetized for this video by mentioning the word that starts with P and ends with on. If you've got all these attachments and you're like, I don't want to let any of that stuff up, well, you don't have to. And I'd highly recommend that if you do feel pulled by this concept of, I guess, minimalism in a way, that if you look at the background here, like, this is a nice space. I'm just not attached to it all. I don't need it all to feel solid. But if I really feel into this, like, there's a part of me that's more attached to living in a nice environment because I have these nice things than if I didn't. So I just have to accept the fact that if something happened and I lost all of my wealth and finances, I'd have to be okay with letting go of these things that I'm currently attached to. But the point is, I'm going off track here. The point is that you will feel a natural pull to remove certain things at certain times. It might not feel aligned for you to let go of certain things now, but there's probably things in your life right now that you've already let go of that you feel really awesome about. So one of those examples for me, like, if you said to me right now, hey, you should let you sleep on the floor and not have a bed, that's refraining from certain comforts. Some people find a lot of power in that. It doesn't feel aligned to me right now to do that. I want to still keep sleeping in a bed, but I'm not going to judge that as something that's like, oh, that's ridiculous, just because I'm still attached to it. I haven't drunk alcohol for 14 or so years, maybe longer now, 15 years. Yeah, 15 years. So for me, that was a fantastic decision. I love the fact that I don't drink. But if someone was to say you should never have sugar again, including fruit, I'm attached to fruit. I want to keep eating fruit. I love the taste of it. It brings me a lot of joy. But it's not to say that a future version of me won't feel excited about that. I feel really in alignment with not having a luxury car now. That feels great for me. And I love getting in my car and just going places and enjoying the present moment while I drive. But a previous version of me would have thought, yeah, that doesn't feel cool to me. It feels exciting for me. So now, like, it would actually felt aligned to do that. And I feel great about that decision. So I'm just suggesting a concept of removing attachments, knowing that there will be certain attachments that you want to keep and things that you want to keep in your life, and it's aligned to keep them in your life. But there'll be certain things that you've kind of toyed around with a little bit. Maybe it's like over-consuming social media. And if you connect to your higher self, I don't feel aligned with spending heaps of time on social media. So I'm going to do my best to kick that habit, that unhealthy habit. And that might feel awesome for you. And then when you're walking about through your life, there's less ADHD, short-term gratification, kind of pinging of your nervous system where you're feeling like you need to keep grabbing, grasping, etc. It feels awesome for you and you love that decision that you make. So the purpose behind what I'm saying here is that I'm not suggesting a good way to live and saying that people that have a lot of short-term gratification are bad. I think it's just a process of letting go of certain things at certain stages in life. And I can just share from my experience that as I graduate from my attachment or addiction to something and let it go, my life just naturally feels more full. I feel more content and fulfilled with who I am and where I am than before I had that extra addiction. And so invitation, but not expectation. Really, and this goes for all suggestions that I give, I really, really invite you not to take the invitation or the wisdom that I share and then want to use it as a self-punishment tool where you hear me suggest something and then go, oh, I feel bad now that I'm not doing that. Feeling content with who you are, knowing that where you are is perfect, is one of the real guidelines to which I choose to live my life and support and coach and teach other people. So that's it for this video. Where's your next piece of freedom? And would love to hear your thoughts on the content. You drop in the comments. And any suggestions for future videos, please chuck them in the comments, because I'm going to be doing lots of regular videos and I'd love to create content that you're actually curious to hear about. So lots of love. Please leave a comment. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.